if you live in New York, like, tell the police what's happening. Like, get this person,
This goes without saying, don't do that. People die from this shit. The reports have been made. If people are wasting their time with, I saw it on YouTube, this person's got to be arrested, you're making everything 1,000 times worse. Blaire is incredibly irresponsible for suggesting this.
She actually left a vomit emoji on my Instagram. It's on one of my pictures. I don't even have a screenshot because I didn't care that much, but I remember.
I didn't even care that much, but I remember it. God, do I remember it. I think about it every day. It's important to the narrative that this person left a vomit emoji on my Instagram. Grow the fuck up. Hello, lovely people. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Emma. It's sweater weather. We're loving life. Sweaty Emma is long gone. It's time for shivery Grandma Emma. Today we're going to talk about a big character here on YouTube who I have not discussed before, and I shall tell you for why. Today we're going to be looking at a video by Blaire White. Blaire White is a right-wing commentator, similar kind of vein to Matt Walsh, similar politics. I encounter a lot of commentary on Blaire White in my kind of social circles because I am interested in LGBTQ+ issues. Chiefly, in my particular bubble, a lot of criticism of how she handles trans issues, trans news. I share similar feelings on how she handles a lot of things. The reason I haven't really seen fit to discuss those thoughts so far is because I am, as much as some people are surprised by this fact, I am cis, and criticising a prominent trans person's views on trans issues feels kind of squicky. For that reason, as well as just for integrity's sake, if I fuck anything up, if I get anything a bit wrong, if you think you're missing some nuance there that you wouldn't get as a cis person, please shout at me. Or you don't have to shout at me. Actually, I'd prefer if you didn't. I'm only small. But if you want to shout at me, you can. Likewise, if Blaire happens to see this and thinks I've missed anything, I welcome her feedback too. Blaire White is a very right-leaning commentator. She's very proud of that fact. Likewise, I lean quite heavily in the opposite direction. And so, as I say, my particular social circle, the trans portion of that seems to have taken the stand of just, we don't want her. She doesn't stand for us. We don't like what she does. And the reason, well, amongst the reasons, is that Blaire White has a history of spreading misinformation, missing out key information, just saying things that are false, whether that's a lie or it's a lack of integrity in reporting. It's not clear. No one can say without being in her brain. Certainly, her channel fits a certain agenda. Every channel that touches on politics has a bias and an agenda. Mine certainly does. Like I say, mine is just the opposite to Blaire's, and that's why it's noticeable. But Blaire White has specifically acknowledged, and this is one thing that we should be complimentary of in a sense, is that she has acknowledged where she has spread misinformation several times. There are a number of, straight to camera apology videos where she does say, I fucked up, I didn't research this thoroughly enough, and that's wrong. Which is great. However, when that happens one time, that's life. You fuck up, you miss something, I've done it, everybody's done it, you've done it, we all fuck up. You fuck up twice in the same way? Yeah, okay, it happens. If you're consistently spreading misinformation, particularly about the same minority groups, you start to think maybe those apologies aren't genuine. Maybe this person hasn't actually learned anything and isn't going to change because this has been, as I say, a repeating thing. This misinformation spreading has been a repeating thing throughout Blaire White's channel, and we're about to talk about a new video in which she does the exact same thing. So I struggle to appreciate those apologies and acknowledgements for what they are. I can appreciate that they exist. She's still spreading misinformation in the exact same way that hurts trans people. So let's talk about it. This particular story concerns Eli Erlick, who is a trans activist and personality. Jessie Gender has a really good 2-hour video that goes through this entire story, the allegations against Erlick, loads and loads of details, really thorough reporting, covers the kind of misinformation pipeline, not just from Blaire White, but through Matt Walsh and newspapers and different media outlets. Really, really interesting. I'm going to give you like the TLDR version, and we're going to look at specifically Blaire White's reaction to these allegations and the kind of misinformation around that. I'm probably going to reference information that was sourced by Jessie Gender throughout this video. So I do recommend, if you're interested in learning more, definitely check it out. Also, if you're not already subscribed, Jessie Gender makes great content and is a Star Trek nerd. Big Star Trek nerd. Hey, this is a great time to mention a Star Trek fan film just came out starring me. I think it's cool, okay? I think it's cool, but I am a grandma and I love Star Trek. Check it out. Anyway, basically there are a series of allegations against Eli Erlick. A couple of right-wing media outlets reported on those without giving a whole lot of context. It put allegations that can very quickly be debunked as just having no validity, along with valid allegations that should be taken seriously, and treated them all as equals. And then that got spread around by people like Blaire White. I don't know how to say this. If you're watching my channel, you're probably prepared for this. I don't know how to say this. Blaire's channel is very shock power, shock content. It's about eliciting an emotional reaction, like we've talked about with Matt Walsh before. Or Ben Shapiro. Facts don't care about your feelings, but actually he secretly builds all of his arguments on emotional standpoints. Blaire White's kind of like that. It's very shock value. That's the phrase I was trying to think of. So just, the video opens with her like doing her lipstick in a knife. So let's bear that in mind as we watch this video. This is the video. I'm aware that nothing has made sense so far. I know that, okay? Let's just watch the video and I'll explain as we go. Trust me, it'll all be fine. Relax, okay? Calm down. Here we go.
She messaged me saying, trans youth deserve life-saving affirmative care. You can quote me on that. To which I replied, and you're gonna make one superb prison. Quote me on that. Oh, hey. Welcome back to my channel. We are gathered here
You see what I mean, though? I hope that was a fake knife.
today to drag the ever-living out of a disgusting ass, predatory ass, loser ass, dumpster juice ass, bottom of the barrel ass trans activist named Eli Erlick. Now, I know I've done videos on a ton of really awful people on this channel. This one's gonna take the cake. This is gonna go down in history. This is one of the absolute worst, if not the worst. Actually,
okay, even if we skip past the whole knife throwing thing and the whole prison bitch intro, heavy emotional language. There's nothing strictly wrong with that until you get to the actual reporting. Given that Blaire's channel is entirely shock content, the fact that she's bracing us for the worst implies that this is fucking an evil human being, right? Okay, let's just bear that in mind as we go.
it's the worst. And I had a fun video for once planned this week. I think I'm gonna post it at the end of this week, but this one just seemed a lot more urgent to me to make. And I've genuinely been trying to take a step.
Is this a real background? I'm trying to work out if she's green screened right now. If she is on a green screen, it's very, very good. Maybe it's just playing with depth of field. I like this background. That's unrelated.
Back from making these predator videos, especially these trans predator videos, because honestly, mental health cannot be in tip-top shape if I'm consistently familiarizing myself with these awful stories, these awful people, the details of their cases, and that can't be good for my brain. Not that my mental health isn't already completely shot. I'm a girl. So Eli has been making headlines for publicizing and admitting to operating an illegal drug
I don't know what that meant. I don't know what that meant.
trafficking scheme aimed at providing hormones and trans-specific drugs to underage children. Now, that's already incredibly depraved, right? Honestly, the video could just end there, and we could just write this person off as this is a monster. Yeah, for real. And you may have seen people
We could just write this person off as a monster. Okay. We got no information. We got no context. Again, this is covered in more detail in Jessie Gender's video. I really recommend you watch that for heavy information. Essentially, the truth is this. Eli Erlick did discuss, hypothetically, we can't say whether or not she actually trafficked any drugs or did anything like this, but she hypothetically was talking about saving up medication to give to people who can't get medication because it's been outlawed, to trans people who can't get medication because it's been outlawed in their state or whatever. Drug trafficking to minors is the most aggressive way you could possibly take that. That is the most harsh spin you can put on that story, because it takes into account zero nuance. I don't want to get too hung up on this particular allegation because this is just the very start of the video. People will have a problem with this. People will justifiably have a problem with this. So I just want to quickly bring the entire thing into context for anyone who is like, well, obviously that's evil. This person should be in prison, the end. This medication is life-saving in many situations. We're talking about things like hormones for trans people. If you are forced to stop taking medication, either because of financial reasons, because your insurance will no longer support it. Remember, this is the USA, or because it's been made illegal, that can have serious effects on your physical health, your mental health, and a lot of people would rather get medication not from a pharmacist or a doctor, but from an outside source because that's the only place they can get it from. That is a choice that a lot of people would make because of those reasons. Let's not forget, this is something that comes up so often whenever we look at these right-wing commentary channels, the horrifying dystopian medical system in the USA that puts people into crippling debt for getting sick is part of the reason that people would look to alternative sources for their medication, right? Part of preventing illegal drug trafficking is making those drugs accessible via safe and legal routes. That is something that Blaire White and people like her are against, because that's socialist. Free or affordable healthcare is so scary and evil. I'm just saying, very rarely will somebody like this acknowledge the economic system that they so love is causing these devastating effects that they don't like drug trafficking. It is illegal to traffic drugs for a reason. Okay, that's the flip side, and the reason that people care and are afraid is because it is dangerous to traffic drugs. There's no reason somebody doing this couldn't repackage some other medication. It might not be what it says it is. It could go to somebody that hasn't had this prescribed by a doctor or pharmacist, and that could have health effects for them. It's illegal for a reason. However, again, cycling back, a lot of people simply don't have an alternative, and the physical and mental side effects that they might get from not being able to have this medication, they might argue are worse than any potential risk, and so that's why they do this. A lot of people, especially in this right-leaning political commentary sphere, tend to conflate moral and legal. In some places it's illegal for people to access those drugs. Is that law moral? A lot of people would say no. The most appropriate equivalent I can think of, which is something again that Jessie Gender touched on, is abortion. Most of us, many of us would say that that is immoral. It's immoral to make abortion illegal. What did that spur on? That spurred on a lot of underground back alley abortions, right? Those things were, or are, in some places, illegal. They also save lives. They save lives. They protect people. Again, many simply weigh that the physical and mental side effects of being forced to carry a pregnancy would be worse than the risk of back alley abortions, and so that's why they do it. If you really want to tackle the problem, you have to tackle the source, which is your medical system and your economic system. So many would see Erlick talking about providing drugs and healthcare to people who cannot otherwise access it as a noble thing, a good thing, right? A moral thing. Many would still disagree. There's no yes or no answer to whether this is a right or wrong thing to do, but it is much more nuanced than drug trafficking to minors. This person should be in prison. We could end the video right there. It is so much more nuanced than that. This is an assumption, but I would postulate that part of the reason Blaire White wouldn't acknowledge how more complex the issue actually is because she supports an economic system that allows for illegal drug trafficking to happen, that encourages it. So that's the drug trafficking side of it. Clearly Erlick isn't in prison. It was a hypothetical that they posed. Whether you think that's right or wrong, it's sort of irrelevant when it comes to the law. So very heavily skewed introduction to Erlick from Blaire.
Of TikTok and Matt Walsh, you definitely don't want Matt Walsh on your ass. Going after Eli, and justifiably so. I completely support the fact that they are attacked.
Nobody fucking wants Matt Walsh on their ass.
You're a piece of shit. And anytime you're publicly asking minors to DM you, a little bit of a red flag is popping up, especially when you understand the accusations against Eli from years prior. They're going to make the whole asking minors to DM me thing even more fucked up, but we'll get to that. You know, Eli's not a doctor. What happens when these kids who are taking these very serious drugs at your hands, Eli, have issues, have negative reactions, have bodily changes they regret? You're not going to be on the hook, are you? No, because you're operating in the black market. Although it's not that black of a market.
Agreed. That's actually correct. And that is exactly why black market drug trafficking is a problem. However, you have to look at the system in place that's allowing and encouraging that to blossom. Blaire White is pro a system that encourages that drug trafficking, and she's not willing to talk about the physical and mental side effects, the going through changes in your body that you might later regret, that people will suffer not being able to get that medication. Whereas that's just as important. That's of just as equal weight in the discussion. She's specifically only bringing half of the conversation in. Why? Agenda. The agenda of making trans activists look bad. Which sounds crazy because she's a trans person, but that is the agenda of Blaire White and her channel. That's what she does. That's how she makes money.
Market, considering you're admitting it online. At first I was like, you know what? The fact that Eli is willing to publicly state that she's committing a felony and operating an illegal drug trafficking scheme aimed at minors, it takes some balls to do that, right? Like, no pun intended. Or was it? I was thinking, wow, she's really delusional to think that she's not going to get in trouble. But you know what? It's not actually delusion. It's reality. People like this are so accustomed to escaping consequences that it means nothing for her to post this.
People like this. Another favourite of Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro. They are doing this. These people like this. What people? Trans people. The bad trans people. The scary trans people. That's what you're supposed to fill in as a viewer when she says people like this. Prominent trans activists.
You slap the word trans in front of your name or trans in front of what you're doing and you can get away with a lot of...
I paused too early. She literally added made the trans part public a second later. My bad.
Now, as someone who has been on hormone replacement therapy for almost a decade now, because a bitch is getting old, I can tell you that these drugs can absolutely ravage your body if you are not very precisely dosing them, if you're not under the strict, like, watchful eye of a doctor who knows what your body needs, who's monitoring your levels of both testosterone and estrogen, because you have to have both, trans people included. Also, testosterone in particular is a Schedule 3 drug that is very strictly regulated. It's very powerful. It's very dangerous to take without doctor supervision. And the fact that she wants to give it to kids is just so demented. Not to mention a felony.
We're hammering in. She's so Matt Walsh. She must be a huge Matt Walsh fan, because it's like listening to Matt Walsh. Hammering in the fact that this is illegal because for particular groups of people, this particular slice of US politics, this right-wing crowd, this American right-wing crowd, illegal means immoral. And that's not reality. Despite saying, as a person who's been undergoing hormone replacement therapy for a decade, it can have a big effect on your body, yes. What would also have a huge effect on your body, Blaire, is if you stopped taking them. If she was a minor, with an O, not like down in the mines, diggy. It doesn't matter if you're a young person or not, but if she was someone who couldn't access that medication, what would she do? She's not providing an alternative solution. She's not talking about why those people might not be able to access that medication through legal means. It's just blanket, this is illegal, and a trans person said it, so, yeah. Share in my disgust, click on my video, give me money.
The parent of a child who is receiving drugs from this freak over the internet, and you find out however long after it starts happening, I can't. So I reached out to Eli, seeing if she had anything to say for herself, any sort of statement to give me for this video, because clearly I'm just gonna make this video. And she messaged me saying, trans youth deserve life-saving affirmative care. You can quote me on that. To which I...
And Blaire White has no response. She has no response. She has no solution. She's not willing to discuss, like we've said a million times, why that trans youth are not getting the healthcare that they need. She's not willing to discuss the huge impact that has on trans youth suicides, only that, well, this thing is illegal and therefore it's bad.
I replied, and you're gonna make one superb prison. Quote me on that. Because, period. Also, can I just say these creepy pictures, like, glorifying the drugs themselves?
Because, period, isn't an explanation.
So the illegal drug trafficking scheme aimed at minors brought other allegations to light. Back in 2018, there was a young woman who accused Eli of f***ing her until she bled, against her will. And Diamond made multiple accusations against Eli, including sexual abuse. She has since taken her own life. She has since committed suicide.
Okay. Here we go. We're into the meat. I don't know how much of people's names should be in this. I noticed that Jessie Gender was censoring them, so I'm just going to censor them as well, just in case. Because just in case, it kind of sounds like everyone involved has sort of moved on from the situation and doesn't want to discuss it anymore, so I respect that. The person that Blaire White is discussing here has not committed suicide. That is a lie. Well, that is misinformation. Again, we can't say whether or not Blaire is just a really lazy reporter. Honestly, here's the thing. Whether it's a lie or whether Blaire is just terrible at reporting and should not be doing this for a living, I don't think it matters, because at this stage, Blaire White has done this so many times that it's clear she will never improve her investigative skills if that is what this is. If it is just a lack of journalistic integrity, if it is just a lack of effort, then she's never going to change, because she has done this so many times and it keeps happening. This person did not commit suicide. That is false. But again, a brilliant emotional standpoint. What could elicit a more visceral reaction in a viewer than hearing that this young person took their own life as a result of this person's actions? We're going to talk about the rest of this, but to say that alone is enough that, for me, if I was Blaire White and I was doing this shocking video and I didn't research properly enough and I saw this article said that this person had committed suicide and I just shared it and said this person committed suicide because of X other person, when I found out that was false, I'd delete the video straight away. At the very, very least, put a fucking pinned comment explaining the misinformation. It's interesting. It's not interesting. It's sad. It's sad and honestly kind of pathetic that Blaire White reached out to Erlick to get a statement from them. It was only about the drug trafficking part, and it was basically, I would guess that Blaire already had the "you'll be a great prison bitch" line ready and wanted to contact Erlick to put that in the video to have like a shocking statement. That's just a assumption of mine, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. Blaire reached out to Erlick for a statement, but hasn't shared any of Erlick's rebuttals. Danny posted about this online. Erlick posted in response. This issue, it's It's fucked up start to finish. Whatever happened is bad, and I believe we should absolutely trust and listen to the victim. And I think if you think Erlick is a piece of shit, or she was a piece of shit at the time that this stuff happened, whatever, that's perfectly valid. However, in any he said, she said story, the very least you can do is acknowledge that both sides exist. So I am going to link down below the original post by Danny and a response post by Erlick, which acknowledges, firstly, that no, Danny did not commit suicide, talks about their relationship. Erlick makes accusations in response. It seems like Danny recanted some of the allegations after the fact. Of course, somebody can be coerced or persuaded to do that, especially if they're getting a lot of public attention, so you don't have to let that influence your opinion. All I will say to this is do not take Blaire White's word as gospel, because it is deeply, deeply skewed. And typically, when it comes to abuse, assault, I am kind of pro going ham on the fucker that did it, okay? I don't disparage that attitude. I don't think there's anything wrong in principle with somebody like Blaire White being like, fuck this person for what they did. This is absolutely heinous, putting the victim's statements at the forefront. However, you must acknowledge context. You must do the tiniest bit of fact-checking. Once again, she opened this with, they committed suicide, which is demonstrably false. Read the statements, watch Jessie Gender's video. There was a Title IX filed at the university. Danny filed claims against Erlick. Erlick filed counterclaims. In the end, the Title IX found there was nothing on any side in any avenue that they could pursue, basically. Which, again, doesn't mean that nothing happened, but there is a paper trail of legitimate accusations that you can follow. Basically, Blaire White is not going to do due diligence. So, unfortunately, we as consumers, well, you as consumers, I'm going to put all the links down for you, okay? So I'll do the due diligence that Blaire White did not do, and you can read that and come to your own conclusions. Or not. There isn't really a conclusion to come to, personally, I don't think, in this.
And then attempted to silence her through a smear campaign. It is speculated that, based on the harassment from Eli's followers, it was too much for her and she took her own life. Now, obviously, no one knows what's in the head of someone who killed themselves, but it surely cannot help if you were recently raped and then the person who raped you sent their army of followers after you for speaking out, right?
They didn't commit suicide. They aren't dead. They're alive. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do correct me if I'm wrong. I cannot find any evidence that Erlick sent an army of followers to harass this person. However, I do acknowledge that as a prominent public figure, it's entirely possible that some of Erlick's fans did harass this person. In fact, given what the internet is just like, I believe that's very likely. So, caveat that. The event she references there isn't recent, so I don't know what... I think she just hasn't read much of the information or hasn't taken it in properly. I just think Blaire White is the worst reporter. Girl, get yourself on GB News. You'd fit right in.
Also, a very important part that I did not say in this video is that after Danny came forward and posted these allegations, Eli actually DM'd Danny. Danny made those DMs public, one of which said, Danny, you are so important to me and so many people, and you always will be. I hurt you, and I have to do what I can to not hurt anyone else. This is literally an admission of Danny. Because again,
no, it is not. And to say this is literally an admission of is a lie, is a piece of misinformation. Would that be slander or libel? Or defamation? Might be defamation. Earlier, Blaire White made the effort to include, very briefly, the words, the allegations, or whatever. In this case, she said, Erlick literally admitted to... If you read the full statements, it is very upsetting, okay? Whatever happened between the two of them is deeply upsetting, and Erlick is at fault for a lot of it. That doesn't change the misinformation in reporting here, okay? It is very clear that Erlick hurt Danny. That much we can say with certainty. This screenshot, okay, of this message, again, the context of this conversation is available in Jessie Gender's video. I'll share it here as well. This message did not come in the context of Danny saying, you raped me. According to Erlick, the context of this conversation was about Eli not having been supportive and acknowledging Danny's depression and being very sort of cruel and unsupportive, and it's something that she acknowledges and, as you can see from the message, is apologetic about. It's not for us to accept those apologies, it's for Danny, but there is nothing in that suggests that this is in response to an allegation of... Unfortunately, Danny's message to Erlick was in the form of like a text document. So we only have the context of the conversation with the document linked. So we can't see exactly what she said that Erlick did respond to in order to verify what she says it was about. Equally, there's no way to verify that this is in any way related to... That's a piece of legally very dangerous misinformation. And considering how much in this video Blaire is like, that was illegal, it's a felony, that thing was illegal. Girl, you need to learn your defamation law, because this is very serious. Erlick has actually talked about this in the aftermath, in response to Jessie Gender's video, I think, sort of debunking a lot of these claims, and like I say, showing the context for this, and has said that she is not interested in pursuing legal action, she just wants an apology. Someone very litigious who has the time and money could quite easily have made a case of defamation against Blaire White for this video, and I don't know what to make of that in the context of Blaire's reporting in general, because it seems very ignorant, naive. It's YouTube, it's shock culture, it's clickable content, and the more shocking the better. Even so, to outright state this false thing, this false thing, this thing that cannot be validated is just not smart for yourself, for Blaire White. It is not a smart thing to say, this person has done X, Y, and Z that I cannot prove, because you could get your ass sued in a second.
Again, this came directly after the posts were made, and this is Eli's response. One woman accuses Eli of forming an inappropriate relationship with her while she was running an organization called the Trans Student Educational Resources Group and working with young trans people, which go back to the fact that she's having them all DM her to send drugs through the mail. Like,
separate things occurring at very different times. Again, Blaire is taking this sort of hypothetical and really exaggerating it into she's DMing minors. She's getting minors to DM her all the time to traffic drugs. And the implication, obviously, is that Erlick is getting minors to DM her for other nefarious reasons, which again, there's no way to validate those claims. She's not outright saying that's what Erlick is doing. She's doing that classic Matt Walsh thing of letting... She's doing the they, them, they do this, people like this. She's doing that again and allowing the viewer to fill in the blanks with the most shocking thing to give them the most negative reaction possible. It's shady as fuck.
The victim was apparently a volunteer in Eli's organization, so right there you see the power dynamic and the power imbalance. The alleged victim specifically said, "I do not trust Eli Erlick with vulnerable young trans people, especially trans people of color, looking for a hero when they never see their experience represented." This was in 2017, and now in 2022 you have Eli saying, "All the trans kids need to DM me and I'll give you drugs." Like, what? Very common thread in a lot of the accusations is that Eli does target African-American women, and that they're all trans-identified as well. Now, I know that
I admit I don't know what the all is here. I have done my best to find all of the allegations against Erlick in pursuit of this, and I could only find the source of 3 allegations.
Kind of like the black sheep of the trans community, I get it. Even though you would think in a sane world this fucking freak would be, but whatever. However, I know a lot of people...
I'm trying to work out what the purpose is of sharing a photo of Erlick. Obviously, the photo with the medication on her tongue, it's very clear that she's still reinforcing, because she says it every 5 fucking seconds, the illegal drug trafficking, the drug trafficking to minors. If you really care about that, that's fine. As much as we can sort of gently deride and mock Blaire for her integrity when it comes to properly researching sources, this video is well made, it's well thought out, she's been doing this for a very long time, and as such, everything in it is completely intentional. So whenever you're watching, I'm going to ruin... If you've ever done, like, media studies, it's the same thing as, like, English lit, whatever, you'll be very familiar with this process. Every single thing in a piece of media is intentionally put there. So you have to say why, okay? Blaire White has intentionally put up a picture of Eli Erlick while saying, this fucking freak, why? To demonize, to make her seem like some kind of other, to turn the audience against her in a way that isn't providing any information, is just eliciting a visceral reaction to an image and sharp language. This fucking freak, reinforcing that with a picture of her. That is biased as fuck reporting. Reporting is a strong word for what Blaire White does. Typically we focus mostly on the content, and I'm talking a lot here about the manner in which Blaire White presents information. That's because she is representative of everything I have a problem with public media, like, right now. And if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see me complain about British newspapers all the time. The sensationalization of stories All of this work put into eliciting emotional reactions, with no work put into giving context, giving nuance to a story, sharing multiple sources of fact-checking, basic fucking fact-checking. There's none of that. All the work is put into eliciting an emotional response, because then you are more likely to engage with the content. That's why the news seems so fucking dark all the time now. It's because the more shocking and horrible it is, the more likely you are to click and engage with it. Let's carry on.
In the community, and from the last week of talking to people that I know who have been in contact with Eli in certain circles, it's a very small community. It is a very known thing here at this point that Eli is a sexual abuser, and yet still gets this weird pass. I don't get it, because it's...
Once again, I'm not inside Blaire's head. It's perfectly reasonable for Blaire to have contacted friends and associates to gauge their opinion and to not want to share those publicly. But again, just legally to say it is a known thing that X person is a sexual predator, without source, without providing any way for us to validate that, we're just expected to take it at face value. And this is one of the worst things about it. It's relying on our trust in victims, right? There is a largely very positive shift lately in people instinctively believing victims. Here, she is using that to manipulate her audience into just trusting her on something that is she's just said. Trust me, I've talked to people. It's a known thing. They're a sexual predator. If you follow Blaire White, if you're a fan, you're just gonna believe that, because of course you are.
This actually has come to light at certain times throughout the years. At one point, Eli had written an article for an LGBT website called Into, and when people were commenting saying, why are you guys hiring a sexual abuser? This is a very known thing about this person. They took the article down and cut all ties with Eli. Like, there are actually an insane amount of posts on social media throughout the years with consistent narratives and stories about Eli. I'm just gonna read some of them here because why not? Hi, Eli Erlick me and fuck her and fuck this article. I'm gonna go listen to Ariana Grande. That's kind of funny. Eli Erlick is an abuser and rapist, mostly of QT POC. I don't even know what that means, but I'm assuming the POC means African American, and that is the case that a lot of these victims are African American. The author of this is a trans woman who had me removed from U-Haul nightclub because I called him out for her.
So the majority of these tweets are from now deleted accounts, recently made accounts. Once again, I would love to direct you to Jessie Ginder's video where they go through this in actual detail. If we go to this first user, they joined in June 22 and they have one tweet. So that isn't helpful to us. The second tweet comes from a real account that is still active but doesn't provide any more information. There's not really a lot we can do with this. It's not something that we can validate. It's not something that is really useful in reporting. This third allegation we can actually get to the bottom of. The author of this is a trans woman who had me removed from a nightclub, blah, blah, blah. Okay, this person was kicked out of a venue that Erlick was hosting an event at. The source of this information is this single tweet. It's not a brilliant source. Erlick has denied knowing the person. Again, we can't validate that that's true, but it's worth taking into account. The account that made this tweet has since been deleted. Jessie Gender used the Internet Archive and basically discovered that this account had largely been used for spreading anti-trans misinformation. It would be far from the only fake Twitter account used to spread misinformation about trans people, if that is the case. The tweet that is, again, now removed also suggests that Erlick admitted to forcing women to have penis in vagina sex. A, that's not something that they have admitted to, so that is demonstrably false. B, while I hate drawing attention to somebody's genitals in a discussion of trans issues, although maybe I can be forgiven because Blaire already made a balls joke earlier, the fact is that Erlick doesn't have a penis and didn't have a penis at the time that this was made, so that's something that she's discussed very publicly. So the only information we can fact check in this tweet, which is now deleted, along with the account which has been removed, and is responsible for spreading a lot of anti-trans misinformation, is false. The only information we can verify here, we know is false. So once again, if you were a moderately decent journalist, you wouldn't fucking include that allegation amongst the other ones. And here's the thing as well, for somebody like Danny, for any other victims, it really waters down the validity of their genuine allegations and concerns that we should take seriously if you put those on equal standing with demonstrably false allegations made by most likely fake Twitter accounts, right? It hurts the victims to do that, okay?
In the Bay Area's queer community that he's admitted to being a rapist, fisted multiple women until they're...
It's worth noting as well that this tweet misgenders Eli quite a lot. It's always possible that that's an accident, but how likely is it that somebody invested in the queer community is going to repeatedly misgender this person while they're making these allegations?
And force them to have PIV sex. The thing seems to be a common thread. So semi-interesting personal story here about Eli. I remember weeks ago before the story even broke about the drug trafficking scheme and the allegations that she actually left a vomit emoji on my Instagram. It's on one of my pictures. I don't even have a screenshot because I didn't care that much. But I remember Eli just deciding to leave a little hate comment on my Instagram.
I didn't even care that much, but I remember it. God, do I remember it. I think about it every day. I'm just taking the piss, but come on. I wasn't even affected by it. I didn't even care. I didn't even screenshot it. But I'm going to bring it up in this video. It's important. It's important to the narrative that this person left a vomit emoji on my Instagram. Grow the fuck up.
So funny that now this has come out. She's getting a lot of hate comments, and I encourage them. Now here's another issue I have here.
I said earlier, right? I don't want to tone police anyone, myself included, for going ham on an abuser, for being angry and for vocalizing that. I think it's fine, it's justified. When all you have are allegations that you cannot prove, that you cannot validate, especially when a lot of it you can disprove, when you've spread misinformation, stuff that is not valid, it's not fucking okay to actively encourage hate. Despite what she says, Blaire was evidently so moved by this vomit emoji that she's held on to that, and yet she is perfectly comfortable sending her minions to harass Erlick. Let's play a hypothetical game for a second. If Blaire got Erlick harassed so badly she ended her own life, it would be perfectly in keeping with Blaire's channel and Blaire's history and this very video for Blaire to do a video called "Trans Woman Harasses Someone Till They Commit Suicide." Do you think she would do that? It's just a fun hypothetical to point out some hypocrisy.
When you Google, we're going to Google together, Eli Erlick, right? The articles that come up when you select the little news tab, here's how Google...
I've just noticed something about the background that's baffling me. There's a fan on and a fire. Are we warming up the room or cooling it down? Maybe this is something about American houses that I don't understand.
Who has a clear left-leaning bias handles these kinds of stories. You Google Eli Erlick, select news, it says...
Google has a left-leaning bias, is what Blaire White says, having specifically used exclusively right-wing sources and Twitter that have gotten the facts wrong and has mindlessly shared that misinformation. Irony, thy name is Blaire White.
As conservatives accuse trans activists of illegally sending hormone drugs to children, citing social media. Drugs to children in quotations, trying to lessen the blow. Conservatives accuse. Why does it have to be a conservative thing? Because I've seen a lot of people...
I don't know exactly what she Googled, but let's try and replicate the search. Let's try and see. Top result for Eli Erlick, drug trafficking. Something from Instagram. I've uncovered more evidence of the drug trafficking. Second result, even more evidence of drug trafficking to minors. Alphabet activist Eli Erlick accused of drug trafficking. I think it's funny that we're only being given 2 results to allege that Google is left-leaning. It's just another example, right? And this is why you should fact-check someone like Blaire White as thoroughly as fucking possible before you accept a shred of what she says. What we're being shown by Blaire is very clearly tailored to spread a certain narrative. Because when I do the Google search, when we do the Google search together, it comes up with the right-wing opinion first. That's like some Alex Jones shit with the woke media blaming Google or some shit. That's not even relevant to the story, the fact that Google is left-leaning, which is fucking bollocks anyway. But it's a great example of why you shouldn't trust Blaire White at face value.
On social media, including my supporters, when I talk about this on my Instagram story, for which I have a very mixed political bag that follows me, believe it or not. I know my
if you say so.
I would like to say they're all conservatives, not the case, who are equally as disturbed by the story. Next headline, who was Eli Erlick? Activist comes under fire by libs of TikTok. So right off the bat, this is communicating to left-leaning people, oh, this is someone being attacked by conservatives, libs of TikTok, these right-wingers. You're lessening the blow, and it immediately has the psychological effect to people on that side of the political spectrum to say, at least in some instances, oh, this is one of our people that is being attacked by conservatives. Oh.
If she thinks that is a problem, which is a legitimate concern, okay? If Blaire White's issue is that left-leaning media is telling these stories with a bias that doesn't give full weight to the seriousness of allegations, she should have an equal fucking problem with the right-wing bias that she has demonstrated throughout this video. The only way to properly report this is to include the full spectrum outside of political influence. Blaire White's sources are exclusively right-wing. We have demonstrated that that information is wrong. She's got a problem when it's the left-wing doing this whatever, coming from a position of bias. She's got no fucking problem when it's literally her doing it in this video where she's complaining about it. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing.
Oh, so typical trans person being attacked by conservatives. This is not typical. Eli is being called out for very valid reasons, and if you disagree, you need to get your head checked. And then other articles that seem to make Eli the victim. Matt Walsh accused of luring trans people into anti-trans doc, the dangerous deception of Matt Walsh's documentary. At this point, no one should be under any delusion that when you throw the word trans in front of something, suddenly consequences don't really mean shit. And honestly, the fact that Eli hasn't been arrested, this has been going on for about a week or two, people...
Suddenly consequences don't mean anything if you throw the word trans in front of stuff. Maybe that is the case if you have aligned yourself with bigots who hate you because you think that you will be spared, because you think that being hashtag not like other trans girls, you might somehow escape that wrath as well as benefit from it financially. The fact remains that trans people are disproportionately affected by violence, by hate crime, access to employment, healthcare. The idea that and this is a popular idea among anti-trans people, the idea that by being trans or saying you're trans can somehow absolve you of guilt, can somehow make your life easier, is the most easily disproven bullshit in the entire world. Again, you gotta ask why. What's the agenda? It's making trans people look bad. Which again sounds crazy, because Blaire White is trans. She obviously thinks that being on this political side of things, on this side of the spectrum, she is immune to that hate, or she is less likely to suffer.
Calling Eli out, but the fact that there has been no legal action is really disgusting to me. I encourage every single person watching this, if you live in New York, like, tell the police what's happening. Like, get this person,
This fucking goes without saying, because we've proven that a lot of these allegations are false. And again, this is an incredibly dangerous thing to say just legally. Don't fucking do that. People die from this shit. Not only are you wasting the fuck out of police time, you're wasting these valuable services, and therefore support and tips for people that actually need help are not going through, not being listened to. People die from this shit. Swatting is a thing. At this point, you know that at the very least, Matt Walsh, very likely a huge army of his minions, have already reported Erlick for this hypothetical drug trafficking. Okay? The reports have been made. Flooding the system using misinformation given to you by your favourite YouTuber does not help anyone. It doesn't help, it only hinders. You're putting people's lives at risk. And for Blaire White to share Matt Walsh's, just waste the fucking police time. Let's get loads of people who are unrelated to the case, who have no idea what's going on, who only have third-hand information based on watching a YouTube video. Let's have them all report something that has already been reported a dozen times. It makes a good viral news story. It gets you more clicks, Blaire White, Matt Walsh. It doesn't fucking help. It doesn't help victims. Ask the police. They will tell you, do not fucking do that. If you have just watched a YouTube video and been told some information, don't report that. If you have first-hand information that has not been shared, report that to the police. Good Christ. This is so fucking disgustingly irresponsible. It makes me actually furious. Blaire White, this is why Blaire White makes me furious. People are going to get hurt because she's made a video with 50% false allegations.
Where's the accountability? Because if this was any other person posting on social media, minors, DM me, I want to send you drugs, it would be national headlines. The person would be absolutely destroyed legally. It'd be a disaster. And yet, because it's a trans activist, suddenly people are willing to be like, well, it's not that bad. And it's just conservative.
You can pose that as a theory, if you like, that the reason there's no legal ramifications so far is because this person is trans. You have no evidence for that. It's not something you can validate, so you need to... It's your responsibility, and how I feel is how Blaire looks in the freeze frame right now. It's your responsibility to acknowledge that that is your opinion and your assumption, and not a matter of fact.
It's just right-wingers. Even when I was calling Eli out on Instagram the other day, some of you may have seen if you follow me on there, which you should, her response was sunglass emojis. She thinks it's cool.
Oh my god. First, she sent a vomit emoji, and then she sent 3 sunglass emojis. Shut the fuck up, Blaire. I'm sorry. I'm getting spicy. I am getting spicy.
She thinks it's cool what she's doing. And that cockiness, no pun, actually yes pun, is based on the fact that she knows.
It's funny to remind everyone of what genitals some people used to have.
But the chances of her actually facing consequences for this are incredibly low, if not zero. And that's f***ed up. There are journalists actually defending Eli. This woman named Alejandra Carabello, who works for Slate and Wired, talking about how there's threats against Eli and how this is so wrong. Alejandra, there's this little thing called priorities. How about before you sympathize with someone who's getting death threats online for being a rapist, having an illegal drug trafficking scheme aimed at minors, maybe before you speak up and care about whether she's getting death threats or not.
Both of those things that Blaire White just said, we cannot validate. If she had a shred of intelligence and integrity, she would have said, alleged. She didn't. She made the claim, which she can't back up. Defamation, baby.
You care about the children, the rape victims. If not all rape victims, maybe just the one that committed suicide. Fuck you.
Didn't commit suicide. We're repeating the same lie. We're repeating the same lie in an angry tone, saying fuck you to a specific journalist that isn't even related to the events, with no thought, no care that, oh, maybe I'm spreading hate to this other person as well now. She doesn't give a shit. She doesn't give a shit. She wants people, and she said this out loud earlier as she literally directed her fans to do this. She wants her fans to harass and target people that aren't even involved, for even saying that death threats against this person are bad.
Even today, Eli tweeted, the hardest part about being trans is the way cis people treat us.
You don't get to go boo-hoo-hoo when fucking one of your main points was that somebody left you a vomit emoji on your Instagram. Surely as a trans person, you could sympathize with that statement. What does it benefit the story? What relevance does that tweet have to anything? Nothing. She's just trying to make fun of Erlick, to mock trans people, because that's the agenda. It does nothing for the story, it does nothing for the victims. Everything that Blaire White has proposed in this is harmful to the victims, and I've explained how. Blaire White doesn't give a fuck about victims, she doesn't give a fuck about journalistic integrity, she doesn't give a fuck about just outright lying if it promotes her agenda.
Oh, poor Eli. Oh, the poor getting treated so badly by cis people. Oh, the poor drug trafficker. Demented. I truly appreciate the overwhelming support you have all given these past days. Trans misogyny is an epidemic, but together, I know we can defeat it. Trans misogyny. That's what this person thinks is being launched at them. That's how fucking crazy they are. So here's the deal. I would like everyone to inform the DEA of what's happening. I'll put that link in the...
We've been through this already. Don't do that. Don't do that. If you give bullshit information because you don't have any more information than Blaire White does, and therefore you have nothing new to add, all you're going to do is flood the system, right? You are not involved. You do not have any valid information. Even if this was the worst person in the world and we had validated all of the claims, if Blaire White hadn't lied and spread misinformation about half of the things that she said in this video, it still is not helpful for you to flood tip lines, right? For you to waste police time. Here's the thing, I'm an internet person. I have been harassed before in horrific ways. The police already don't have time for that shit. They already don't have time for victims. You can hope for very little. If people are fucking wasting their time with, I saw it on YouTube, this person's got to be arrested, you're making everything 1,000 times worse. Blaire is incredibly irresponsible for suggesting this.
In the description. With that being said, I'm gonna go try to get my blood pressure down. So I love you guys. Make sure you follow.
Fuck, me too. Me too, Blaire. Okay, why does this fucking matter? It's Blaire White. A lot of people already know that she is not a good source of information. However, an enormous amount of people, 1 million subscribers, think that Blaire White is a good source of information. The reason they think that is because she confirms their biases back to them. And like I said, anyone who has any commentary or any kind of online presence or media presence that talks about anything on the political spectrum does come from a position of bias, okay? And you have to acknowledge that whenever you're watching somebody. I have bias, you have bias. Blaire White has repeatedly spread misinformation about trans people specifically. Similar channels that Blaire White openly supports, like Matt Walsh, like the news outlets that she sourced for this misinformation, do the exact same thing. These things are not accidental. Bigoted right-wing commentators will seize on any story, true or otherwise, that puts trans people in a negative light, because it reinforces their viewers' icky feelings about people who are not like them. Demonizing them makes it very easy to other people, right? These are the exact same propaganda techniques that have been, and unfortunately are often still used, against people of colour, people of minority religions, gay people. So here's the main thing. Whenever you see a story, a tweet, or whatever that poses a trans person as a villain, have that propaganda in the back of your mind. Trans people can do bad things. That's literally what this video is. We're complaining about a trans person doing a bad thing. It's important to keep the context and the scale of that vilification in your mind. Does the source you're reading have a distinctly anti-trans bias? If so, can you trust their reporting on trans issues? This isn't about whether Eli Erlick is a good or bad person. It's not about who is right or wrong out of Eli Erlick and Blaire White. The only thing we can absolutely verify in this story is that both Erlick and Blaire White have done bad things. What this is about is right-wing media personalities removing context, ignoring nuance, not doing their due diligence, all in pursuit of vilifying trans people. Specifically, feeding the stereotype that trans women are predators. We can't know why Blaire White does this. I speculate that it's for financial gain. Either way, it's fucking wrong. The victims deserve better. Better than having their allegations put alongside demonstrably false allegations, which cheapens their allegations. They deserve better than being used as a propaganda tool. They deserve better than being used to incite harassment, even against people who aren't involved. They deserve so much better than somebody who didn't even check if they were still alive before sharing a completely falsified version of their story. They deserve way better. In summary, Blaire White spent this video lying, spreading misinformation, specifically directing her audience to harass people, to flood law enforcement tip lines. Those are the outright objectively wrong things that she does. The bias that she has, the lack of integrity, the emotional manipulation in her delivery, those are more grey things that I find disgusting but aren't objectively wrong. I list the things that are objectively wrong because in my opinion those are more than enough to warrant this video to be removed. I think it's insane that Blaire White has left this video up with so much false information without even having corrected it in a little comment. She's left this video up specifically asking people to do bad things en masse, knowing, and she must know at this point because enough people like me have watched this video and corrected her, knowing that she's spreading lies. She has no problem with that. She hasn't considered how that will affect victims. The only logical conclusion is that she doesn't give a shit. I think it's fucked up. Blaire, I think you should do another apology and delete that video. I'd also ask that you please stop asking your followers to flood tip lines because Jesus Christ. I guess we'll see. Maybe we will get another precious, lower quality than usual, straight to camera, emotional apology on the bits of information that she just didn't read properly, didn't fact check, and that's not okay. So there you go. This is a story not about Eli Erlick, not about allegations, not about victims. It's about a bigot, a right-wing commentator, rehashing propaganda techniques to demonize trans people. I just think that's fucked up. Thank you very much for watching. Hey, if you need to cheer up, go and watch that Star Trek short. I have such a weird life where I spend half my time getting irate at news and half my time fucking holding a tricorder and pretending to beam aboard a spaceship. Just check it out. It's fun, I promise. I don't know if I can promise that. I think it's fun. Thank you so much for watching. Do leave your thoughts down below. Again, anything where you think I've kind of missed the mark, I've missed a bit of nuance, do correct me. I will be really hurt if anybody puts a vomit emoji in the comments or on my Instagram. I'll be really, really upset, so please don't do that. Before we go, I would like to give a big thank you and a shout out to my giant chickens over on Patreon. Have yourselves a very lovely week. I will see you really soon.